for daily application. Want to do them together? Because I haven't done it this morning. Let's do it together. The first one was all things are in God's hands. All things work together for those who love God. What?
You want to add Paul, like Paul in his brothers?
Yeah, good. I am with you always until the end of the world. And then the last one was, we love him because he loved us first. Right? So those are affirmations that help us to get through the day, give us a little bit of confidence, and show ourselves a little bit of self-compassion if we're feeling down or we're going through struggles in our life. God encourages us through those four little. Okay, so today we're going to continue with our theme on the Psalms of the night, and we've been looking at some of the real life challenges that the psalmists go through and that we go through in our life as well. And we're trying to understand those challenges a little bit better so that we can help each other, we can help ourselves, we can be more compassionate, we can understand how serious some of these are. We're looking for some night lights in the Psalms. Some things that God and the psalmist turn the light on to for ourselves to help us to cope and to work through these challenges, and also to remind us how Christ went through these night seasons and these challenges as well. And that can encourage us to realize that we are experiencing and trying to understand better what he went through in his life and in his sacrifice for us. So we've looked at chaos in the first class, we looked at loneliness in the second class, and yesterday we looked at shame and guilt. Now this morning, we're going to start off with another one. Let's take a look at Psalm 52. Psalm 52, verse 1, and see if you can figure out the challenge that David may have been dealing with in this night season. Psalm 52, verse 1, and I'm going to read the heading to the psalm in my Bible. Does everybody have a heading in their psalm?
Yeah.
Okay. So, to the chief musician, a contemplation of David when Doeg the Edomite went and told Saul and said to him, David has gone to the house of Ahimelech. Why do you boast in evil, O mighty man? The goodness of God endures continually. Now just think about that going on in David's life. And when did that even happen, right? And so this is the beauty of the Psalms matched with the historical event. Let's go back to that historical event and see if we can understand what was going on a little bit better. 1 Samuel 21, verse 7. 1 Samuel 21, verse 7 is the historical context to that comment in the Psalm. 1 Samuel 21, verse 7. It says, now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day. And here is David on the run, and he comes to Ahimelech, the high priest at Nob. A certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg an Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. So here is David with Ahimelech the high priest, and he's asking for bread and for a sword in this event. And there at the same time is Doeg the Edomite, Saul's head shepherd. He's at the tabernacle, he's worshiping at the same time. And he overhears the conversations between Ahimelech, the high priest, and David. And when David is asking for that sword, and he's asking for the bread, and he sees David, and he knows that David is on the run from his master, Saul. And what does he do? On over to verse 22. So David said to Abiathar later on, I knew that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have caused the death of all the persons of your father's house. And so Doeg, after he sees David and he knows David's supposed to be hiding, he goes to Saul and says, "Haha, I saw David." Saul, David was down with Abiathar the priest, and he was asking for bread, and he was asking for a sword. So Doeg rats out the location to Saul. And the result is that Saul accuses Ahimelech of harboring a criminal. We don't have time to go into all the details. And he has Doeg kill 85 Levites, and he wipes out the city of Nob. That's the result of Doeg seeing David and ratting him out to Saul. So when you come back to Psalm 52, that context helps us to understand some of David's comments here in the Psalm. Psalm 52, verse 2. He says, "Your tongue devises destruction." He's talking about Doeg. "Like a sharp razor, working deceitfully. You love evil more than good, lying rather than speaking righteousness. You love all devouring words, you deceitful tongue." So that probably the key to the challenge that David was dealing with is Doeg's tongue and the damage that this man's tongue did. It would appear that he was lying about things, maybe to Saul, that he was devising destruction, the destruction of David and the priests. He was devouring, he was deceitful. And as David says, he was just like a sharp razor, cutting into people's lives. Now, if you are David in this situation, how would you feel about this? You know that Doeg has threatened you out. How would you feel? What would you feel? I would feel totally betrayed. Totally betrayed. Even though this is an enemy of mine, Edomite, I would feel completely betrayed. Now, over to Psalm 54. So that's Psalm 52. Notice Psalm 54. Let's read the heading of this song. To the chief musician with stringed instruments, the contemplation of David, when the Ziphites went and said to Saul, "Is not David hiding from us? Save me, O God, by your name, and vindicate me by your strength." So here's another occasion when the Ziphites ratted out David's hiding place in their woods to Saul. And there's another historical clue that's given to us here. We can go back to the event in 1 Samuel 23. Let's go back there. 1 Samuel 23 is when this happened. Verse 19. I think it's helpful when we do the readings or we're doing our own studies to always try and find the historical context of these songs, give us more information and more insight into what David really said. 1 Samuel 23, verse 19. Then the Ziphites came up to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is not David hiding from us the stronghold in the woods, the hill of Hachilah, which is on the south of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of your soul, come down. And our part shall be to deliver him into the king's hand." Paul said, "Blessed are you of the Lord, for you have compassion on me." So the Ziphites, they go to Saul, they reveal that David is in the woods, and they offer to capture him and give him over to Saul. So that's incredible. Now, we don't have time, but if you were to go to 1 Samuel 26, verse 1 and 2, they will have to put that in your margins. 1 Samuel 26, verse 1 and 2, they do it again. A second time. They reveal David's location to Saul. And David goes out and he takes a spear and a cruise at night, and he manages to escape. You remember that story. But again, this Psalm 54, captures David's feeling in this event. Come on back to Psalm 54. Psalm 54, verse 2. Psalm 54, verse 2. "Hear my prayer, O God, and give ear to the words of my mouth. For strangers have risen up against me, and oppressors have sought after my life. They have not set God before them. You can imagine how betrayed David must have felt in these two incidents with the Ziphites. He calls them godless strangers and oppressors that want his life. He must have been absolutely exhausted at this point in time in his life, totally worn out. Here the Ziphites are ratting him out. Now that word there in the New King James, I assume it's the same as in the King James. It says, strangers have risen up against me, verse 3. Is that in yours too? Strangers. That's an interesting word. It's the Hebrew word to be an alien or to be a foreigner in Israel. But where were the people of Ziph from? They were from a city in the tribe of Judah. In other words, these were men of Israel. They were actually part of David's own tribe of Israel. And so this word, stranger, shows that David felt completely betrayed. These were his own men, but they were behaving toward him as complete strangers. They should have had a connection with him, been trying to help him, been right by his side, coming alongside, but they didn't. They betrayed him. Now, come on over to Psalm 55. There's no clear historical clues in the heading of this psalm, but I think we get an idea of when that's happened. Psalm 55. And let's take a quick look at verse 12 to 14. There's lots of other details in the psalm that we get that, but these help us. Psalm 55, verse 12. Just think in your mind who this might be referring to. Verse 12, for it is not an enemy who reproaches me that I could bear it, nor is it one who hates me who has exalted himself against me, that I can hide from him. But with you, a man equal like anything, between them. We took sweet counsel together, and we walked the house of God in the throng. Brothers and sisters, what do you think that is? Well, there's definitely allusions to the life of the Lord Jesus Christ, right? But who is David specifically talking about in these verses? In his life? It could be Saul, right? There was probably periods of time where they walked together. Who? Think about back to our first class. Huh? Ahithophel. I believe that these are talking specifically about Ahithophel, although you make a good point. There's lots of other people that it could apply to as well, right? Including who else? Who else betrayed him that he would have taken sweet counsel together with? Well, yeah, Jesus' life, that's right. How about David's life? Oh, Joab, yeah. How about Absalom, his own son? Yeah, so these verses apply, I would say, specifically to Ahithophel, but they could apply to a lot of other people, including his own son, Absalom. We took sweet counsel together. We went to God's house together. But you've exalted yourself above. You created a coup. You turned everybody in Israel against me. And Ahithophel joined in on that and went against David himself. Now, if you go back to 2 Samuel 15, we can link the historical verses to this in your margin. 2 Samuel 15, verse 10. 2 Samuel 15, verse 10, then Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, Absalom reigns in Hebron. With Absalom went 200 men invited from Jerusalem, and they went along innocently and did not know anything. Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gilonite, David's counselor, his sweet counselor, from his city, Shiloh, while he offered sacrifices. So there's the historical event. Now, can you imagine how David would have felt in all these events that we've just talked about? Betrayal by an enemy, betrayal by people from his own tribe, betrayal from his own close friend, and even his son. These must have been painful experiences in David's life that he was going through. Now, it's worth noting, brothers and sisters and young people, that David wasn't just betrayed by other people. David himself betrayed other people, right? If we're honest with ourselves, David was a betrayer also. Ahithophel, his friend, was highly regarded by David and Absalom. We said in our discussion period, 2 Samuel 16 verse 23 says they treated the advice of Ahithophel as if it was the oracle of God. Highly regarded person, close friend. But you know what? Ahithophel was also likely the grandfather of Bathsheba. So David shamed and humiliated Ahithophel, his best friend, by taking and committing adultery with Bathsheba and killing her husband. So Ahithophel, in a sense, has returned to David the same betrayal that David did to him years later. Not only that, Bathsheba's father, his name was Eliam, and her husband, Uriah, both Eliam and Uriah were one of David's top 37 military men. And so by taking Bathsheba and doing those things to him and killing Uriah, he had betrayed the entire family. Eliam, Ahithophel, Uriah, it must have left them feeling completely betrayed by the king of Israel. So David wasn't innocent in betrayal in his own life. Now, just think about that, brothers. There's this whole circle of betrayal that's going on in his life, and the king saw. Think about that in terms of our own life. Do we know what betrayal is like in our life? You ever experienced that? Have we ever betrayed somebody else in our life as well? The pain that the other person has felt, the pain that we feel, and that betrayal, perhaps we betrayed God of sorts in our life by our behavior as well. The word betray only appears one time in the Old Testament, taken first because it's not used, but the root of that word is used 4 times. So here's the Hebrew word, it's Rama. The root is used 12 times. You can also translate it betrayal. What means to hurl, shoot, pass down, figuratively beguile, deceive, and yield treachery. So it gives us a sense of what betrayal is all about. In the Greek, the word betrayal is paradidomon. It's used 118 times. And people make references to why that may have been used. It means to give or to surrender what is dear into the hand of another, yield up or cast up. And so what it means is that you are giving away or throwing away or hurling away something that is dear or that is close to you. It captures, I think, how painful betrayal really is to ourselves. It tends to be thrown down or being shot down. Now today, we would define it fairly closely. So betrayal means a sense of harm experienced from a violation of trust. It can be one of the most devastating forms of pain that we can feel in our life. And it quickly triggers feelings of rejection, abandonment, self-doubt, aloneness. It implies that the betrayer does not hold the relationship in high regard. That's gutting, isn't it, when you think about that? It means that one party in a relationship acts in a way that favors their own interests at the expense of the other party's interests or their shared interests. Betrayal can be experienced on a spectrum as well. There can be minor forms of betrayal that we experience in life, something of great nature. Some of them can be intentional betrayal. Sometimes we unintentionally betray somebody else to do something we can't trip across the line that we just didn't think about or realize. It can be perceived or it can be factual. There's many sources of betrayal. It could be a partner, it could be a friend, it could be a family member or a colleague at work, our neighbor, someone that we are not even overly close to, like Doeg the Edomite. So there's lots of ways that this can happen, and these are mentioned throughout the song. There's also different forms of betrayal. You think about it. Allow your mind to think about what betrayal is and how it manifests itself. Betrayal may mean a minor thing, not feeling prioritized or supported or reciprocated or remembered. Betrayal may mean breaking confidentiality, which we talked about the other day, or secret. It may mean breaking privacy or moral standards. It may mean breaking a promise. It may mean lying. It may mean deception or gossip, like speculation and rumors, or maybe even defaming somebody in a legal sense, false and damaging verbal or written statements or slander against somebody else that are intended to cause harm. It may mean disclosing information to someone else that causes damage. Could be public humiliation, and we see this like on social media today, don't we? People are ridiculed, or we defame somebody else by typing something up on Facebook and shooting it out so that everybody can see what we're saying. It may mean being absent from somebody else, not showing up for their birthday or their whatever it may be. Disrespecting somebody. It may be institutional. If you are laid off, you may feel betrayed by the company that you work for. It may be something really serious as well. Infidelity, affairs, brother, sister, brother. It may mean treason, betraying the government. And it could be even mental health and addiction. We feel betrayed. Somebody has these symptoms and it hurts us as a person. So there's lots of ways that we can betray each other, and we need to think about that seriously in our discipleship faith, that the impacts of betrayal are really serious as well. So these are some of the impacts of betrayal: guilt, anger, loss of self-esteem and self-worth, numbness, trouble recognizing, expressing, managing emotions, association, bottling things up, denying things to cope with it, shock, grief, difficulty trusting other people, physical pain, stomach distress, eating, sleeping disorders, late or panic attacks, substance abuse, thinking of suicide to escape the betrayal. Betrayal trauma is the term that we're using now. And this is used often in terms of pornography. So a spouse or a loved one feels betrayed because of what you were doing or what you were looking at on the web or on the computer. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, personality disorders, so many things that betrayal can cause in our life, pain that we go through. We see that in David's life in the Psalms. He's going through that pain. Same pain we go through. I know in my life, I can think back to the last several years of very serious betrayals in my life. I felt so betrayed at times. I even say to myself, I don't know you anymore. I don't know who you are. I don't even recognize who you are as a person. That's how betrayed we can feel. So it's helpful, I think, to reflect on betrayal and realize it's a real thing and it's a real challenge we need to work through. How do we respond to betrayal? How do we ensure that we are not the betrayer in our life? Now, let's take a look at some really helpful night lights for ourselves to help us work through betrayal in our life when we feel betrayed. So I'm going to give you 4 or 5 here. I got to take this 6. One of the first things that jumps out to me in these songs is the anger and the hurt that David expresses in these songs. Remember Psalm 55, verse 15. This is part of his reaction to the Psalm 55, verse 15. He says, let death seize them. Let them go down alive into hell. Let them go to hell. For wickedness is in their dwelling and among them. So that's how David felt about these people who betrayed him. Verse 9, He says, destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. So he wants God to destroy these people who have hurt him. Verse 23, but you, O God, shall bring them down to the pit of destruction. Bloodthirsty, deceitful men shall not live out half their days. I will trust in you. So some of these statements that David makes in these Psalms, they're a little shocking, aren't they? You're surprised that the king of Israel, a godly man, a man after God's own heart, is asking God to destroy these people and to and really hurt them. And David calls these Psalms imprecatory Psalms, or they are imprecations. In other words, they are the act of calling out a curse in an angry and hostile form on an enemy or on a betrayer, somebody who's wicked. And they're indicative of how David, the psalmist, felt when they were betrayed. And brothers and sisters, in our dispensation, from the time of Christ onwards, and under the principles of Christ that have given us to live under, I believe it is unwise and inappropriate to let our anger manifest itself in working out these implications that David has given. In the New Testament time, Jesus has asked us to go one step further, to behave and to think and to act slightly differently than acting out these items here in these verses. And even to maybe express or to go down the road of sharing these pretty deathly feelings. We're better off trying to orient our minds and our actions and our thoughts towards loving our neighbor, as Jesus said, or doing good to those who might hate us. It doesn't mean that we don't feel how David felt in these Psalms. We all would feel some of these feelings, but we want to try and avoid those feelings and dissipate them as quickly as we possibly can. That's our goal in the era of living under the principles of Christ. Now, at the same time, the same sense, David was right. God abhorred the behavior of these individuals. David's right by saying these people should be destroyed. These things did not fit into God's way. He correctly shared the desire for a godly kingdom where God would dwell and sinners would be removed. And in these cases, he's asking God to act on those implications. David doesn't act on it, but he's asking God to consider that. Now, there's also a sense in which David, like David, sharing our anger and our upset with God, I think is a healthy solution in these Psalms. Betrayal can be really nasty, can't it? We can feel so hurt by betrayal. And God wants to know what we are feeling, what we are going through, and to share those inner desperate thoughts, that anger that boils up in us. God wants to know that. He's given us these emotions, the emotion of anger. So to feel anger, I don't believe it is wrong. It's what we do with that feeling, how we act out that anger, trying to dissipate that anger as soon as we possibly can. Take a look at Psalm 4. But this is, I think, is our goal. Psalm 4. We have been betrayed. Sharing our anger with God is good, and trying to dissipate it as soon as we can is good as well. Psalm 4, verse 4. Be angry and do not sin. So being angry, we may feel, but not sinning with that anger is the key. Meditating within your heart on your bed and be still, coming to a point of peace in ourselves. And the Apostle Paul quotes this verse later on in the New Testament. So expressing our anger and our hurt to God in a healthy and non-inflammatory form is one of the solutions of the nightlights that we can use when we are betrayed. In working with my own therapist, I felt a lot of anger, and my therapist frequently says to me, anger is like a canister of gas, propane cylinder, right? It just builds up and pressure's in there. You light a match to it, kaboom. Right, what we want to do, slowly open the valve and release tension, release the pressure inside that can. That's what our goal is. So brothers and sisters, do we share our anger with God? I can tell it. We do that. Here's another nightlight. Over to Psalm 55. Psalm 55 and verse 5. Psalm 55, verse 5 to 8. Fearfulness and trembling have come upon me, and horror has overwhelmed me. So I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away, and I would be at rest. Indeed, I would wander far off and remain in the wilderness. I would haste my escape, the windy storm, and the tempest. Now, what's David expressing in these verses? It's a desire to escape his betrayers, isn't it? Get away from them, create some space between him and the storm. It may seem like escapism, but sometimes in our lives, creating space from our betrayer is one of the best solutions we can put into play for us personally, and also for them, and also for people who are around us. So let the storm pass, cool things down, to refocus our minds, our emotions, to heal some, and to de-escalate things. Sometimes we don't have that option, do we? We can't get away, but sometimes we have to take that option. When we are in an abusive relationship, seriously physical, emotional, abusive relationship, for our own personal safety, we do need to remove ourselves from the situation and escape of sorts. We need emotional and physical safety. We may need to separate ourselves from that person, settle things down. Especially true with mental health issues, with addiction and abuse. Staying with that person who is betraying us is actually enabling them to continue with their behavior. You're basically saying to that person, this is okay. You can keep treating me this way. I'm still going to be here. You can just kill me. God doesn't want that. That's not helpful for the other person. It's enabling their behavior. So we need to remove ourselves, perhaps for a time, with the goal of reconciling and bringing things back together later on. So interestingly, David eventually acts on his thoughts in this verse. He does grow wings. He does fly off like a dove, wanders off, and he remains in the wilderness. Right? He escapes from Absalom. He has to, for his own, his sake and his family's sake. So, if we have been betrayed, sometimes it's most helpful to create some space, even for a little time. And this can help everybody sleep better at night. Now, here's the third nightlight that I see in these Psalms. With sharing anger, creating space, help to de-escalate things. But notice David's plan, another plan that he had. Verse 15 of Psalm 55. Psalm 55, verse 15. Let death seize them, let them go down alive into hell, for wickedness is in their dwelling among them. As for me, I will call upon God, and the Lord shall save me. Evening and morning and at noon I will pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He has redeemed my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many that were against me. Let's go up to verse 13. Down to verse 23. But you, O God, shall bring them down to the pit of destruction, cluster the people down. So not live out after days, I will trust in you. What's David? What's his response to this betrayal? Is he dealing with it? Is he retaliating? Is he taking vengeance? Is he going after them? Not right. What is he doing? He's handing it over to God. You will take care of this, God, is what he's saying over and over again. You'll look after this. I'm going to leave it with you. I'm going to step back. You've got it. I don't. So he asked God. We wanted to go after that and show him, hey, look what you did to me. That's how hurt I feel. And I'm gonna hurt you because you hurt me. But David hurt. And you know what, brothers and sisters? He actually demonstrates that to us in a great way. You remember the incident where David is escaping Absalom from the city? We've looked at that several times now. And one of the characters that is wrapped up in that story is a man by the name of an incredible example. This has helped me in my life. 2 Samuel 16. David's escaping Jerusalem. He's under a lot of stress. A lot of people are against him. Feels completely betrayed. And verse 7, 2 Samuel 16, verse 5, actually. 2 Samuel 16, verse 5. Now when King David came to Bahurim, wandering towards the wilderness, there was a man from the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera, coming from there. He came out, cursing continuously as he came. And he threw stones at David, and all the servants of King David. And all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left hand. And also Shimei said thus, and he cursed, come out, you bloodthirsty man, you rogue. Can you imagine David as he's walking along, this guy comes out of nowhere and he starts throwing stones and he's telling him he's a rogue? This is the king of Israel with his army around him. Would you do that? That's pretty bold and gutsy of this guy. This guy had some real guts to go and do that. And it was in the public, right? I'm sure other people saw this as well. David must have felt completely humiliated by this experience. But verse 13, as David and his men went along the road, Shimei went along the hillside opposite him and cursed as he went, threw stones at him, picked up dust. So he continued to do that. And what's David's response to this? One down to verse 9. Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to King David, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Please, let me go over and just take off his head. What's David's response to that? King said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord has said to him, curse David. Who then shall say, why have you done so? And David said to Abishai and all his servants, see how my son who came from my own body seeks my life? How much more now may this Benjamin? Let him alone and let him curse. But so the Lord has ordered him. It may be that the Lord will look on my affliction and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing this day. Now, brothers and sisters and young people, that's astounding. That's an incredible reaction of integrity and of faith on David's part, right? Stands back and he says, you know what? This is not mine to deal with. We're just going to have to endure it. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. And he hands it over to God to look after. That's amazing. That's the example tonight, like for us in our life. Don't retaliate. Hand it over to God. When people betray us in our lives, do we do that? we follow David's example. It's very tempting for us to pick up our own stones and to throw them back, right? And then they throw some more stones at us, and we find a bigger stone. We throw the bigger stone back, right? Or we throw more stones, and then we start picking up that, just like Shimei. So we have a tendency to repay and betray in kind. We have a tendency to gossip and slander and create public humiliation or impose the same hurt and pain that we felt on that other person. But really, it's God's prerogative to look after that and to deal with that, and however he wants to do that, even if he doesn't want to do it. God may have a bigger picture or understanding of what's going on than we do. So it never helps us, and never helps us feel better or to move on and to heal from a situation by retaliating and creating our own vengeance. Leave it to God. So here's a fourth nightlight. Those are three. One of the most painful things about betrayal is a very specific human weapon. David highlights this human weapon for us in Psalm 55, verse 21. Psalm 55, verse 21. Says, and this is talking about Ahithophel, Psalm 55, verse 21, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. That's a great little picture, right? So it seems that Ahithophel, or even Absalom, spoke kindly to David and gave him an outward indication of friendship, but behind the scenes, he was completely two-faced. Eventually, it all came out what he was feeling inside. He felt war deep down in his heart. His words in his heart were like swords against David. And similar to Doeg, back to Psalm 52, verse 2. Same thing, the same weapons, the weapons of the mouth were what were driving these individuals that were betraying David. Psalm 52, verse 2 says about Doeg, your tongue devises destruction like a sharp razor working deceitfully. You love evil more than good, lying rather than speaking righteousness. You love all devouring words, you deceitful tongue. But Doeg must have twisted the truth around at some point. Maybe he embellished what David was doing. Maybe he lied to Saul about what was really going on. But it was his tongue that was the weapon. Brothers and sisters, when we are betrayed, do we pull out our razor tongue and respond to our betrayer with our razor? It's very easy for us to be like Doeg or like Ahithophel, smooth like butter on the outside, but feeling war on the inside, two-faced, right? Speaking nice, kind words, and then turning around and pulling out our razor on that person. We can do that in friendship. We can do that in our marriages. We can do that with our workmates at work or even at school. We can use our tongues to manipulate things and to ultimately slay other people, to do major damage to the ecclesia, major damage to friends, brothers and sisters, and young people. Notice as well, back to Psalm 55, verse 9. This is what David says, destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongue, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go around it on its walls. Iniquity and trouble are also in the midst of it. Destruction is in the midst of it. Oppression, deceit, do not depart from its streets. So it would seem, brothers and sisters, from these verses here, that all Jerusalem was seething with razor tongue during that incident with Absalom creating the coup. Right? Everybody got riled up. Everybody got involved. Everybody's gossiping, telling stories, slaying each other with their razor and tongue. I'm on this side, you're on that side. We're gonna take you down. We're with David, we're with Absalom, we're with the Ahithophel. It was like a fire in Jerusalem. It was burning up the city. And all it was tongues. David observed that as being really wicked. You just think about that in our own lives. Betrayal has an incredible way of drawing everybody in to the fray, right? Everybody gets involved, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's talking behind the scenes about what's going on. They think that they know all the facts of the story. They think that they know best how to handle that situation. Some people get behind the betrayer and support them. Other people get behind the other person who's betrayed and support them. Old grievances and old hurts come all up. People go into the past and dig all kinds of stuff up from the past. People are false witnesses. They say things that didn't even happen. They pretend that they saw something that never even happened. They walk around the walls and the streets of our ecclesias in our community and they decimate each other. I think exactly what David's describing here. It's most possible to do this when we don't have full story. Do you think that everybody during that coup with Absalom and Ahithophel and David had the full story of what was going on? Did they know all the facts? Do we know all the facts? Things that happen in our life, in our churches? 2 Samuel 15 verse 11 says that 200 innocent people joined the betrayal. In the King James, it says, in their simplicity. In other words, they didn't know what was really going on. They just joined in. They joined into the party, participated in it. They went against people that they had no idea why they were even going against them. It made the situation worse and painful for David. We can do that in our ecclesias as well. That we jump on board innocently or in our simplicity, where we take a step back and say, you know what? This is not mine to get involved with. I don't have to participate in this. I don't have to pull up my razor on anybody. Not my business. So Proverbs 18 verse 13, I think, gives us a clue on how to avoid this type of situation. Proverbs 18 verse 13. Proverbs 18 verse 13 says, he who enters a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. In other words, if we feel betrayed, we need to try and find out what is going on first. If we are the one who's betrayed, get the facts, understand what's going on, what's been said, what's happened. If we are tempted to betray, perhaps over a personal matter, we need to ask questions and understand what's going on. If we're on the outside of this betrayal, really important that we understand the facts before we say anything or really get involved in anything. We need to keep our mouths closed and put away our razor tongue. And it's not any different in creating a war or picking up a sword. So our fourth nightlight is to bridle our tongue in response to our betrayer in circumstances surrounding betrayal. Here's a fifth one. Come on over to Psalm 52. Psalm 52, verse 8. David uses a really interesting word several times in these Psalms. Psalm 52, verse 8. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust the mercy of God forever and ever. I trust the mercy of God forever and ever. And then come on over to Psalm 55, verse 23. At the end of that verse, he says, I will trust in you. It's very easy to gloss over this little word, trust, in both of those verses. But trust is a very significant word in the Psalm. If you look up the use of the word trust in the Bible, Psalm contains that word in most times in any book. in the Bible, 71 times. The Psalms really speak the importance of trust. Isaiah talks about it as well. In the Hebrew, trust means to flee for protection. Figuratively, to hide it, to have open, find refuge in. In the Psalm, this word trust is often associated with being under the wings of a bird, such as a mother hen. And if you look at this picture, everyone see the bottom of it? The way too many feet with one bird. All these little birds are taking trust or refuge in this mother hen. And that's the essence of the word trust in the Psalm. Taking refuge under the wings of God or under the wings of somebody else. Now we can see in these Psalms how David felt that his trust had been betrayed. That was a big part of his betrayal. Take a look at Psalm 55, verse 20. He's saying that he trusted God, but couldn't trust others who had betrayed him. Psalm 55, verse 20. He has put forth his hands against those who were at peace with him, talking about his enemies. He has broken his covenant, or in the margin, his treaty. In other words, by violating promises, being the two, Ahithophel and David, Ahithophel has completely violated the trust, close friendship of David. Trust, violation of trust was at the heart of this betrayal. Psalm 41, verse 9, there's another example. He's talking about the same person. Psalm 41, verse 9. Even my own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted up the heel against me. So here is David, or Ahithophel, his words like butter and like oil, actions for like war and sword, that be untrustworthy, broke trust. And David feels like he's been dropped by the heel of Ahithophel because of his trust break. Brothers and sisters, we have to ask ourselves when we read these verses, is this us? Do we do that? Do others feel like they've been dropped by us because we have violated their trust? We've shared something that we shouldn't. We've done something against them. There are a number of elements to trustworthiness, but even Covey really zeroes in on one of them in our important of developing trust in our relationship with each other. Because if you want to be trustworthy, you need to be trustworthy. So trust doesn't just come about out of thin air. Trust is actually earned. That's the way God has developed our brain. The research shows we don't just naturally trust everybody and anybody. Trust is something that is earned, that is developed, and that is enriched over time. Brothers and sisters, we have to ask ourselves, are we developing trust with each other by being trustworthy? Don't just ask somebody to trust us. We use that expression, right? Trust me. Right? It doesn't happen that way usually. You, I, we have to be trustworthy. Take actions in our life to show trust, earn trust with each other, and to earn trust in a sense with God as well. So, are you, am I, a trustworthy person? Are we working at that with each other? There are a number of elements to building trustworthiness that are important to your life as well. To be a trustworthy person, our words must be able to be trusted. In other words, what we speak, we do. What comes out of our mouth, we trust it and believable, and we follow through on it. So our words must be able to be trusted. Our actions must be able to be trusted. And words and actions must be consistent. In other words, our words don't say something and our actions say something different. They have to match, they have to come together. The words can be trusted, actions can be trusted, words and actions are consistent together. That's being trustworthy. Trust is earned when actions meet words. They are consistent with each other. Are we that way? Something we need to practice in our life. These are other things that make up trust that are really important as well. Consistency, reliability, integrity, accountability, commitment, confidentiality, like we talked about, confidence, boundaries are really important as well. Those all go together to make up a trustworthy person. If we remove any of these elements from our life and our behavior with others, we are eroding trust. And eventually it can lead to betrayal. So let's just look at that list and just ask yourself, which one of those might I have removed in my betrayal to somebody else? Maybe I betrayed somebody else because I wasn't consistent, because I wasn't confidential, because I wouldn't take accountability for something. And what one of those words, one or two, would you like to work on in your life? What do you know? You know what? You need to be more reliable. Build trust for people. I need to have more integrity. Keep working at that. That's an action item list for ourselves, isn't it? Work on those items. So maybe that's something we can take away for this week. Take one word a week. Spend, I don't know, 10 weeks working on our trustworthiness by working on those elements. So being trustworthy is critical. If we don't develop an environment of trust in our collegians, and we are not able to be vulnerable with each other in our collegians, people close up, people shut down, people bottle things up, people fake things, people don't share things, people lie to each other, and people feel betrayed. Trustworthiness, being trustworthy, is critical. God wants us to be trustworthy and to develop trusting relationships with each other. Now, reality is we all drop the ball at times, don't we? We're not always trustworthy. It's part of the human condition. So there is another reason that I believe the Psalm talks a lot about trust, right? 127 times. Not just trust between ourselves that God is instructing and is important. The majority of the uses of the word trust are related to God and his character. He is the model of trustworthiness, of somebody that we can trust in our life. Take a look at Psalm 55. Psalms are demonstrating this to us, and David recognizes this. He's sharing this with us. Psalm 55, verse 22. Cast your burden on the Lord, he shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved. In other words, he's trustworthy. But you, O God, shall bring them down to the pit of destruction. Bloodthirsty and deceitful men shall not live out half the days, but I shall trust in you. Psalmist emphasizes the importance of trusting God and God's trustworthiness. So when we're going through our night season, so helpful to recognize that we can trust in God. We may not be able to trust in brothers and sisters or other people around us. We may have lost that trust, but God is always consistently, from day to day, from night to night, somebody that we can trust and confide in. He is a God of integrity, accountability, commitment, consistency, confidence. Psalm 52, verse 7 through 9. Psalm 52, verse 7 through 9. Doeg, here is a man who does not make God his strength. But what is Doeg trusted? He trusted in the abundance of his riches and strengthened himself, trusted in his wickedness. But I, like a green olive tree in the house of God, I trust in the mercy of God forever and ever. Because we can trust in God forever. That's part of his character, consistency. From day to day, year to year. I will praise you forever because you have done it. And in the presence of your saints, I will wait on your name, for it is good. So God is someone that we can trust in our betrayal. Now here's our six nightlight for dealing with betrayal. I think this is one of the most important. This is an important nightlight. Recall the story that we just talked about with Shimei in 2 Samuel 16, right? Praise David with throws the stones at him. When we get to 2 Samuel 19, several chapters after that, Absalom is dead. The nation of Israel is in complete chaos, and David returned from the wilderness back to Jerusalem. Things have sort of settled, be able to come back because Absalom and Ahithophel are both gone. Comes back to Jerusalem, and there's an incredible list of pardon and restoration that David puts into place in order to bring the nation back into place, in order to set himself back up as a king. Take a look at this. This is astounding. 2 Samuel 19. 2 Samuel 19. Verse 18. Notice what he does specifically with Shimei when he comes back to Jerusalem. 2 Samuel 19, verse 18. Now Shimei, the son of Gera, he fell down before King David when he had crossed over the Jordan. And he said to the king, "Do not let my lord impute iniquity, or remember what wrong your servant did on the day that my lord king left Jerusalem. That the king take it to heart. For I, your servant, know that I have sinned. Therefore, here I am, first to come out today of all the house of Joseph to go down to meet my lord the king." The Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, "Shall not Shimei be put to death for this? Because he has cursed the Lord's anointed." David said, and the second time he said it to him, "What have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? You should be adversaries to me today. For any man be put to death in Israel today? For I do not know that today I am king over Israel." Therefore the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." The king warded him. Now, brothers and sisters, you think about what Shimei has done to David. You think about what Abishai wants to do, again, take off his head. And what's David's reaction to that? That's radical. That is absolutely radical. In every scenario, you would think that David would have to right, take that guy out. It's decimating. But he doesn't go, and he forgives him. Whether or not Shimei was here or not in his request for forgiveness. So, brothers and sisters, that's a second example of Christ's command in Matthew 5, verse 44, to love your enemies, and to bless those that curse. Shimei was person David. He had broken the law, which said in the Exodus 22, "Thou shalt not curse the ruler of thy kingdom." When we are betrayed, we are humiliated and decimated by others. We may leave off vengeance to other people, but do we go one step further and actually forgive them? Somebody has had an affair against us. Somebody has been abusive to us. Do we forgive them? Hard, isn't it? Really, really hard. But God has asked us to do that. And David has exemplified that in his examples with Shimei. That's our goal. And I'm not suggesting that forgiveness comes overnight or immediately. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it's a process to work through that forgiveness. So forgiveness, very simply, is an intentional decision to let go of resentment, anger, and hurt. It follows Jesus in God's command. It restores connection, closeness to God. It creates healthier and happier relationships, even with the betrayer. It releases the power and the control that others have on us. It allows us to move forward with peace and hope. It gives us better sleep if we forgive, lower blood pressure, less anxiety, stress, hostility, depression, improved mental health, stronger immune system, improved self-esteem. I'm not just saying that, that's what research, medical research does. That's what forgiveness can do for us physically. And God is showing us that's the way to go as well. Now, important to remember as well, hard to see the heading of this, it just says that forgiveness is about you and God. Forgiveness is not about you and them necessarily. Forgiveness does not mean that they will forgive you. Forgiveness does not mean that the other person is going to change. Forgiveness does not guarantee that we can reconcile relationships with other people. So we should try as much as we can with the circumstances that don't make sense. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean excusing or forgetting the scenario. And I think, brothers and sisters, sometimes we get that a little bit mixed up. You hear the expression, forgiveness is forgetting. I don't believe that that's necessarily 100% true, and I don't believe that it's entirely scriptural either. We do our best, put aside, put it in the past, and forgive and get over those things. There are certain things that people have done to us in a betrayal sense that need not be forgotten, of course. If there is somebody who is a pedophile or has abused kids or has been abusive to us, if you're in an abusive relationship with somebody who's beating us, husband or a wife is torturing us emotionally, we can forgive them. But we need to remember what has happened. We don't go back into that relationship. We don't forget exactly what has happened. We remember, but we don't let it take over our life if we can't move forward with God. So there is a sense, brothers and sisters, that we need to learn from these experiences where we are betrayed as well. But also try to forgive that person for our own benefit and for our own relationship with God, and hopefully with them as well. I'll guarantee. One last note about forgiveness. I want you to come back to Genesis. This is a verse that really has hit me in my life, and I want to share it with you. Genesis 50. In this chapter, Genesis 50, we meet Joseph. And you remember what happened to Joseph? He was betrayed by his brother, his own close family. He was betrayed by Potiphar of sorts. He was betrayed by the butler and the baker of sorts. This is a man Joseph, who was molded and shaped by painful betrayal in his life. Genesis 50, verse 15. Genesis 50, verse 15. Incredible verses. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the betrayal, for the evil which we have done to him. So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, before your father died, he commanded, saying, thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sins, for they did evil to you. Now, please, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of your father. Joseph heard that. He wept, and they spoke to him. His brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, behold, we are your servants. Joseph said to them, do not be afraid, for am I in place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but, and that's worth circling, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, save many people alive. And now therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you, your little ones. And he comforted them. And he spoke kindly to them. The emotion in those verses, brothers and sisters, is so powerful. Here is a man betrayed, and he forgives them for what they have done. But he also is able to see a bigger picture. The betrayal brought salvation. And sometimes when we go through a betrayal in our life, God is working out a bigger picture that we cannot see. We go through the pain, We feel the pain inside from the betrayer, from our brothers and sisters. But God is working out salvation in the seeds. We just can't see it. And sometimes we have to wait many years. We have to go into prison. We have to be mistreated. We have to be thrown in a pit. We have to be derided and humiliated by our family. Years later, we see that there was salvation that was working behind the scenes. That's incredible. Brothers and sisters, if you have been betrayed, remember to think like Joseph. You meant it to me, against like evil, but God has meant it to be good. That's crazy. That's radical. Brothers and sisters, close. Betrayal is a painful experience for all of us. Something that David experienced in his night season. Psalm 55, he makes an interesting statement. I want you to just think about this verse and who it reminds you of. Psalm 55. Psalm 55, verse 12. And you all alluded to this earlier. Psalm 55, verse 12. Let me just remind you, for it is not an enemy who approaches, then I can bear it, nor is it one who hates me, who has exalted himself up against me. Then I can hide from him. But it was you, a man, my equal, my companion, my acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together and we walked to the house of God in the throng. Who is that? Definitely Absalom. If you think of somebody in the New Testament, it's the Lord Jesus Christ talking about Judas, right? And you all said that earlier, right? Yeah. This is messianic as well. It's David's experiences. They hit the fell, but they mirrored Jesus' experience with Judas. Close acquaintance. They went to the temple together. They broke bread together. They lived together. They were friends together. He was a disciple of Jesus, and yet Judas betrayed him. So David wasn't the only one who experienced betrayal, and we aren't the only ones who experienced betrayal in our life. Jesus himself experienced betrayal. In John 13, he says to the disciples, most assuredly I say to you, one of you will betray me. John 13, verse 21. And shortly after this, Judas kisses him and betrays him. So Jesus knew very painfully what it meant to go through betrayal in his life. I believe, brothers and sisters, that God allowed us to go through betrayal in our life. We know the experiences of Jesus, so that we can relate to the experiences that Jesus went through. And Jesus went through betrayal, so he can understand as our high priest the feelings, infirmities of our flesh, and the betrayal and the pain of that betrayal that we feel on our end. Brothers and sisters, let's use the Psalms to light up our own betrayal incidents in our life, and to use them to teach us how to work through and to cope and overcome the difficulties that we may face.